Accordingly, we'd like to invite from JICA, Senior Deputy Director General and Senior Director, Office of COVID-19 Response, Human Development Department, Dr. Ikuo Takizawa. So upon the presentation, allow me to introduce Dr. Takizawa. Takizawa has been working for Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, for more than 25 years on health and related projects in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. So he has been involved in this project, and currently he's in charge of the health crisis response through health and medical project as a deputy director of the Human Development Department of JICA and the director of the newly established Office for Cooperation and Countermeasures Against New Coronavirus Infection in October last year. Dr. Takizawa will give a lecture under the title of From Bush to Bench and Bench to Beneficiary, Pathway to the Real World, Application of the Infectious Diseases Research in Africa. So the importance of alliances is going to be the subject of this talk. So Dr. Takizawa, please. Well, thank you very much for the kind introduction. My name is Takizawa from JICA. Thank you very much for this very valuable opportunity. Well, today, the presentation. Well, I've been working in JICA for about 30 years, centered around in Africa, related to public health. And based on these experiences, it is not really a representing comment from JICA, so this is a disclaimer. So I would like to have the freedom of speech and sharing my own beliefs. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a researcher, so I'm an expert as a aid worker in public health. So this will be my stance in presenting this presentation. Working at JICA, in terms of, I have learned from the great researcher in tropical infectious diseases in Japan, a very important phrase, the bench is in the bush, the bench is in the bush. In the research of tropical diseases, it's very much field oriented. So all the, of course, knowledge resides in the field. So this is my learning. So bush is just a metaphor, and it's not really a jungle or a bush, but where people are suffering from the infection and living with those infectious diseases is the site where people actually leading their daily life. So field work is very important for many of the researchers, and I was very much moved by this attitude. And in terms of research of tropical diseases and others, it's really a simple model, as you can see, in terms of how this is conducted. The information and specimen collected through careful fieldwork, and then taken into the research lab for detailed analysis, and the results are compiled in a paper document. So in other words, fieldwork, laboratory work, and paperwork are connected, and that contribute the creation of practical knowledge. So the practical knowledge is going to be created. So it's a very simple course flow, but just looking at it, I think it's applaudable and requires a lot of patience to do this work. Perhaps the greatest difficulty is that from field to lab work to paperwork through these processes, gradually the enjoyment of true research may decrease. And there's more of a sense of duty as we progress on. But it's a simple model of my understanding. And I tried to find out how much this international collaboration at JICA, in terms of where we are involved in the establishment of African Institute of Infectious Diseases, how they have been contributing to the knowledge creation. This is the database of the document and publication. So this is from the Web of Science, utilizing the analytic function. All the registered publications and paper. So there are academic papers, not that alone, conference presentations are all included in these numbers. But out of that, the authors, let's say, belong to the Noguchi Memorial Institute of Medical Research, and the number of documents that are cited in other documents, the number of citations. So This transition is in form of a graph. Bar graph represents the number of publications registered on the left side, and on the line graph shows the number of citations on the right scale. On the 1982, the first paper issued when the data is on October 21st, so the latest data, total of 1,686 references paper has been published, and per 21.6 citation per reference. Especially when you look at the graph, it's clear, but after 2000, there is a surge of increase of the publication. So it's about 130 references and publication that are registered, and a number of citations exceed 4,000 cases per annum. And I would like to note that this analysis, affiliations are only those listed in the literature and not necessarily cover everything. Let's say the author conducts research at the Noguchi Institute, but its affiliation is in University of Ghana. The number of, in this case, if it's the affiliation University of Ghana, it's not going to be reflected as a number from the Noguchi Institute. So there are limitations of the indices. But in terms of the non-citation, generally, in terms of the non-citation, it's quite high. So it's just a handful that really drags the average to be high. So it's slightly higher than actual numbers. But in getting the overall atmosphere, I think it will give you a good image. The next is, this is a Kenya Medical Research Institute, KEM. We have the same, of course, statistic. This is 1980 since the first issuance. This is as of October 21. The number of total paper is 6,872 papers. And the inside citation per paper is 31 citations per paper. Like Noguchi Institute, after 2000, there is a great surge. And in per annum, there are 450 publications registered, and the citation has exceeded 20,000 per year. And the creation of knowledge, the contribution of that, Noguchi Institute and KEM, they had made significant contribution to the world. And after 2000, the growth being so strong is at the same time, there is a expansion of global investment of resources in the field of international health. The Web of Science, in terms of the aggregation of data by organization of funding is also possible. Both institutions is not only Japan, but the various funds and organizations are funding this research globally. But however, this in terms of the growth, the expansion of the resources, why this is done in funding as well, is that in 90s and 80s, the people development and research environment has been expanded extensively, and a foundation for research was well established. And that is the reason why this infectious diseases, the global, of course, common asset has been able to be established as a tailwind. And this also have contributed to the creation of knowledge globally. So I think that ODA in that sense have also fulfilled its part. It's praising myself, but I think this is a major contribution made by Japan's ODA. But we are not satisfied here. With experience of COVID-19, the infectious disease research has become more practical. The field work to laboratory work to paperwork is still important. But of course, the result of that need to lead to new ideas or new vaccines or medicines or drug discoveries. And through those efforts, it needs to protect people from the threats of infectious diseases. And in other words, push to bench, and also there's bench to beneficiaries linkage that is going to be important. In other words, so creating knowledge, not that alone, improving health and social change. It's a creation of impact. So the generation of impact is needed as of now. And here, in terms of push to bench, on top of that, bench to beneficiary, in order to promote this development, there are 10 perspectives that I would like to share today. First of all, at the conceptual stage of the research, it is important to listen to and reflect the voices of the beneficiaries. And in addition, as what Professor Watanabe and other doctors has been saying, the result of the research, the stakeholders will be utilizing them in terms of the subject diseases, and decision makers involved and policy makers involved needs to be incorporated early on stage. And also the size of the impact or this future expansion, the practical utilization. We need to discern the future because research have long lead time. We need to discern the future based on various information. We need to prioritize what's important to conduct research first. And in terms of social implementation, increasing the probability of that, we need to look into rational prioritization involving the stakeholders. Those are also very, very important. And I would like to underscore that. But purely from the scientific standpoint, some of the basic research is also important. And that is, of course, something that should not be denied. For instance, very recently, the webinar that I participated, Dr. Kyokawa has mentioned that this pandemic, the messenger RNA technology is under the spotlight. Originally, this was not to aim for the contributing of the rapid vaccine development, but with this pandemic, it has proven to be very effective. So therefore, believing in the possibility and probability, a pure seeking for the scientific benefit by means of basic research is also therefore meaningful. And labo work for leading to new product development or new idea development, this is the so-called translational research that also needs to be focused. And as a result of the research, it needs to be timely in an easy to understand manner, needs to disseminate the policymaker and the people. A sort of a strategic communication method is important. And furthermore, the new product and new ideas to deliver to a wide spectrum people for them to utilize for better health. Delivery science in terms of implementation research is also something that we should not forget, especially in a rapid development of new product. It's of course, alignment with the pharmaceutical and medical authorities. Recently, JICA pneumonia sort of treatment, we have an international platform that we have established, REMAC, and the Japanese researchers are cooperating on this. And how platform are advocating adaptive design, the meaning of that, and application on the developing countries has also been a theme for the webinar. At this trial, the adaptive design, the application of that, and in terms of the platform and medical devices, this is going to also be very important. And by implementing these methods, the important partner is people and the stakeholders to listen to them and reflect in the plan. The civil society, the communication with civil society important, and the stakeholders will be utilizing the result of that outcome. We need to also involve policymakers, also the pharmaceutical drug manufacturers, the private companies, in order to implement those ideas. And there are a lot of joint implementation platforms that we all need to get ourselves involved. And also field and laboratory, the beneficiaries, there are two more things that I would like to add. One is that from feed forward to beneficiary, one series of flow to have an indices to measure the impact. It's not easy as it sounds. For example, the number of patent applied to the patent, and also some of the sub data that the institution academia has, the basic research receiving public funds, how they lead to the actual outcome of a program and project, and measuring the actual social impact of that. So it was analog information that was dispersed in various institutions, but now with digitalization, we'll be able to accumulate and aggregate them. So in a broad spectrum, we'll be able to have a method to measure the significance of the project. And the other is research funding. So investment to funding, the effective coordination of that. In this forum, AMED and GHIT, as had been Professor Kakuno has introduced, and also JICA. There are some public, of course, funding that we will be able to place. And there are three, of course, these government funding. So busy with the daily work, sometimes very difficult to look around that reflect upon my personal experience. But with a little ingenuity, we can increase the synergy of each of this investment. For example, basic research funded by the balancing of the potential for social implementation and scientific interest, it will be done AMED. And translational research funded by GHIT is going to take this lead, such as NTDs. And the implementation research is supported by JICA as part of the development project. So these are the combination. So AMED and JICA, we can, with cooperate in SATREPs, maybe we'll be able to support some of the institutions that we all have common interest in. And furthermore, from the basic idea to social implementation, as an impact of the research, we need to have three institutions to develop a joint way of measuring this. So in terms of the efficacy and effectiveness of the outcome is also something that is very important for us to acknowledge. Lastly, this time, from bush to bench to beneficiaries, effective utilization of this flow. There are one important prerequisite is an African Research Institute must always be at the center and lead the processes. So Noguchi Institute and CAMRI, looking at the result, the African institution have these capabilities and power to do so. So this is the pathway in terms of social implementation and infectious diseases research in Africa, 10 which I've highlighted earlier. So with that, I would like to conclude. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this very precious opportunity today. Unfortunately, I cannot see you in person, but I hope that we'll be able to engage ourselves in the panel discussion. So thank you once again.